Hello and welcome to OSW Review, the old school wrestling video podcast.
Jay, it's not OSW, it's not our show. Welcome to Wrestling Bios. It's Reliving the War and it's coming up right now.
See you in an hour.
The chosen one.
It's me for real. Unbeknownst, unbelievable. Somebody like the Fuse so I can bring bad news to all these crews who can't NBA jam with the shoes. That double shot Hennessy got my mind tripping. Drunk enough to start a campaign on ass kicking. With my nigga Keith who give assists like Scott Pippen. With MC Derelict whipping, back for cop twisting. Drop your money in the slot if your block don't got a real representative for action like my black guy.
Well, here we are. Welcome to Bash at the Beach 2000 and welcome to a full night celebrating this absolute train wreck. It's July 9th, we're back in Daytona Beach. A measly 6,500 are in attendance and we've got an estimated 100,000 watching on pay-per-view. This is the last time WCW would hit the 100k mark, so it's all downhill from here, folks. I wonder why. The boys from OSW Review are also covering Bash at the Beach 2000 tonight, and their video is going to go live right after this Reliving the War review. I'll be jumping over to OSW's video to join in on their live chat, so I'll hopefully see you all there where we can catch this pretty iconic pay-per-view one more time. We've got Kevin Nash trying to win Scott Hall's contract when he faces Goldberg, Scotty Steiner defending his US title against Mike Awesome, and Jeff Jarrett defends his WCW Championship against Hollywood Hogan. What could go wrong? Our show begins with Ernest Miller telling Big Smooth to keep the MIA and Filthy Animals away from the opening match. The Cat then hears some music signaling the arrival of the Young Dragons. Jimmy, San, Kaz and Yang were involved in an Ernest Miller karate demonstration on Thunder, and the boys got paid handsomely for taking a beating from the Cat. So it looks like the Dragons want to earn some more money perhaps, but they fail pretty miserably. We'll come back to the Dragons a bit later on. Smooth also failed pretty miserably in keeping the MIA and Animals away from the opening match. Juventud Guerrera defended his Cruiserweight Championship against Lieutenant Loco, and even though the factions were sent to the back, both teams made an appearance towards the end of the bout. The match started off with Chavo pulling off all kinds of atomic drops, and young Juventud decided he didn't want to continue. He lay on the ramp while complaining of sore hoovy nuts, but he eventually came back down to the ring, and really it was all Chavo here as the match progressed. The Animals returned wearing spooky masks, and yes, improvements all around here, especially for disco. Sorry, the hip hop inferno. Mickey J and Ginger Ref were like, you're not fooling us, you dopey dicks, and the Animals were sent to the back. Juventud then took control of the match with a great looking sit down powerbomb, and there it is, the Juice Elbow, the most mildly shocking move in sports entertainment today. Bit nuts how Hoovy's still continuing on with this rock stuff after a throwaway line last year. Get over it, Juventud. The Misfits then made an appearance, and they too had the exact same idea as the Filthy Animals. What a coincidence. As our referees deal with the General and company, Major Guns comes bouncing down the entranceway, and our big mama jammas easily distract Hoovy. Chavo pulls off a Falcon Arrow, Hoovy kicks out at 3, and our match ends with Hoovy performing the Hoovy driver, Chavo getting a foot on the ropes, and the Lieutenant gets the pinfall win after a Tornado DDT. Good opener here in comparison to previous WCW pay-per-views of 2000, so no complaints. Could have done without all the shenanigans, but it's not surprising either. Ernest Miller tells the Young Dragons they did a good job during the Thunder karate demonstration, but it's over. No more kung fu and no more fighting. The Dragons are way too focused on the word job though, and I'm guessing they think Ernest has more easy work lined up for them. Whatever the case, hearing Jamie Noble talk with an Asian accent is pure money. Jeff Jarrett barges into the room with one of his fat Norse ladies from Nitro, the joke being that the fat lady's going to sing for Hulk Hogan tonight at Bash at the Beach. In a way, this is exactly what would end up happening. On Nitro this past week, WCW had someone pretending to be from Standards and Practices try to stop the ladies from appearing on TV, and Jarrett smacked him with his guitar. Truth is, WCW's been having a lot of legitimate issues with Standards and Practices recently, and it's gotten to the point where storylines have had to be scrapped, including the one featuring Vampiro and the elusive lampshade head. It was reported that Standards and Practices wouldn't sign off on the character who was rumoured to be named either the Lord or Syndrome, though played by Christopher Daniels. manuals, and so the whole thing was just thrown in the toilet and forgotten about. Anyway, Hulk Hogan hasn't arrived at the building yet. Jarrett's eager to know where Hollywood is, but I'm sure he'll show up at some point. Big Vito was supposed to face Terry Funk and Johnny the Bull next, but due to an attack on Thunder, Vito now has two mystery opponents tonight at Bash at the Beach. Out comes Screaming Norman Smiley and the ever-lovable Ralphus, so we've got these two versus Vito in a handicap match. I love how Ralphus just stands there waiting to get hit with a kendo stick. Typical WCW hardcore match here with the bonus of a backstage big wiggle. Ralphus then got a chance to hit Vito over and over again with a trash can lid, and yeah, not the most elegant performer, is he? He also stalls for a solid 5 seconds waiting for the lid to get punched in his face. Norman gets put in an elevator, allowing Ralphus and Vito to take the fight to the ring. We all know Ralphus isn't a trained performer, so his mission right here is to simply take punishment and be happy. Vito grabs a table, and I'm guessing WCW's table budget was sliced in half because that piece of shit's already broke. But the hardcore champion makes the most of it, and he still puts Ralphus through it with a top rope splash. Big Vito retains the hardcore title, and Norman's just like, oh well, when he comes down to ringside. Dog shit hardcore match. Let's move on. Billy Boy Goldberg's arrived at the arena. He's got Scott Hall's contract and his skyrocket. Big Nash calls Goldberg a bald-headed prick before reminiscing a little about his buddy Scott Hall. Nash doesn't want the good times to end. He's going to jackknife Goldberg in the middle of the ring, and for old time's sake, Nash is going to conduct a survey after the bout. Next up, we've got two women fighting over David Flair, so this must be the most unrealistic wrestling match in the history of our great sport. David's left Daffney to be with Miss Hancock. He fully admitted to doing the dirty on Thunder, and he also admitted to shaving Daphne's hair. So we've got ourselves a Bash at the Beach wedding gown match. Lucky us.
You know that life isn't fair when two women fight over David Flair. It isn't right. It's so very wrong knowing David has a massive dong. He gets more pie than The Rock, giving meat to the lovely Miss Hancock. Flair Jr. has no class, but he still can't wait to get a piece of that ass.
Out comes David and Stacey. We've got a wedding cake at ringside, which is going to turn out to be the biggest waste of money ever, I'm sure. David's also brought his hair clippers, so someone's getting a free cut tonight on pay-per-view. In the ring, David's all over Miss Hancock, isn't he? Daphne comes out and she sees these two kissing quite passionately, so David takes a low blow and our match is on. Daphne gets set up in the corner and we see a handspring back elbow. Wrestling moves, ladies and gents. Daphne pulls off a few snapmare takeovers, which Tony Schiavone calls fundamentally sound. And our match goes to shit when David and referee Slick Johnson try to break the women up. Both dudes get their pants ripped off, and look, Johnson wears his tidy-whities over his shirt. What a knobhead. David takes a headbutt to the groin, which Schiavone calls the spot of the year. Doesn't take too much to impress Tony. The girls then chase each other around the ring before David brings the clippers in. Stacey's just about to shave Daphne's head, but Crowbar comes out to save the day. Crowbar reads the room. He sees that everyone's in their underwear, so he joins in. I have absolutely no idea what's going on here, but WCW pipe in some sound effects when David takes a sit-out gourd buster, and Stacey stops the action so she can dance in the middle of the ring. This is fucking pay-per-view, ladies and gentlemen. You had to pay a fee to watch this. Just thought I'd remind you. Seeing as Stacey took her own clothes off, the referee calls for the bell. Daphne wins, and Slick Johnson takes a seat to watch Stacey perform. Before everyone heads back up the ramp, they put that wedding cake to good use, and I don't know what to say about this at all. Pure bollocks. One week David Flair's the ultimate Nepo baby, he's then a member of the NWO, he then becomes a nutcase, he gets a new dad, and now he's frolicking around in his underwear with two different women. The journey of a wrestling legend, I guess. The Young Dragons are stalking Ernest Miller around the arena. There better be a payoff for this or I'm going to be really angry. Our commentators inform us that Hollywood Hogan still hasn't appeared in the arena, and Hudson says there's been rumours circulating that Hulk just isn't going to compete tonight. Schiavone thinks Hogan's playing mind games, Wood from the Hood playing 4D chess. Look at the mess David and company's left around the ring. Never mind standards and practices, call health and safety. Surely this next matchup will take the taste of that rancid wedding cake out of our mouths, as it's time for the tag team title match. The perfect event to defend the gold against Kronik. And our trusty ginger referee's going to take charge of this one, so you just know there's going to be absolutely no nonsense here. Shivani calls Chuck Palimbi, which made me laugh, but what isn't funny is the amount of stalling taking place as we get underway. Eventually we get some action as Palimbi gets tossed over the top rope, and he's soon joined by his partner by way of a gorilla press from the ring to the floor. The crowd made a lot of noise for this spot. More time wasting as the champs threaten to walk out, but we finally get some wrestling. In this wrestling match is Brian Clark and Sean Stasiak hook it up. Sean gets a few shots in, but things quickly turn around as Clark hits the death penalty. The challengers stay in control and Palumbo gets dropped with a full Nelson slam. The champs are able to low bridge Adams and they do some damage on the outside, including a chair shot across the back. And the perfect event keep the advantage when things get back inside the ropes as Brian Adams gets wrecked. We get a "Let's go Kronik" chant as Chuck locks in a sleeper, but Adams eventually fights out because everything he does it for the fans. But he gets brought back down with a kitchen sink, so much for that. Stasiak locks in a sleeper of his own, and Adams certainly isn't on cloud number 9 right now. He is able to fight out once again, and both men go down after bumping heads. Clark gets the hot tag and he wipes out the tag team champions. He looks for the meltdown, but Chucky counters and he drops Brian with a DDT. We go to the outside as Stasiak takes out Clark with a clothesline off the apron. The perfect event double team Clark back inside the ring, but Adams clears out Chuck and he hits Stasiak with his perfectly safe and not at all terrifying F5. The challengers connect with the high times, but Palumbo stops the count. He ends up taking the high times himself, but Sean looks to attack with the Lex Flexor. This backfires and Kronik score with a Doomsday Powerbomb to pick up the win and the tag team titles, so there you go. Honestly, this one wasn't terrible. Was it worth watching this show for? No. Was it perfectly serviceable? I'd say so, yeah. The crowd were really into Kronik, so that's a bonus too. Double J still wants to know where Hogan is, and Ernest is like, fuck if I know. Jeff leaves, and I'm just noticing Ernest has a magic 8-ball on his desk. This is what he uses to decide who wins and who loses when booking matches as WCW Commissioner. That East Asian music begins to play, and the Young Dragons appear to launch an attack. Miller did say the boys done a good job on Thunder, so I guess they want to keep doing a good job by beating Miller up. Now, this one should be good as Positively Kanyon goes one-on-one with Booker T. Two great performers here, so this has the potential to be match of the night. Booker T's defending the honour of DDP tonight. Dallas decided to go home, Kanyon took over his gimmick, and so Booker's went after Chris as a way to fight back against the New Blood. The crowd chant Booker's name before the bell rings. Booker uses that support to take the lead in the early going, and a big spin kick not only knocks Kanyon down, but it also knocks his wig off. A double whammy for our positive pal. This act must have fired Kanyon up as he gains control with a back elbow and a shoulder tackle, but a big dropkick stops his momentum. Booker then decides to have a look through Kanyon's novel as Chris is on the outside, but that book feels a little heavy for some light reading as it turns out there's a brick hidden inside it. Booker throws the brick away as Chris proceeds to get battered on the outside for a bit before Booker connects with a top rope clothesline for a 2 count. We go back to the outside. Lads, come on, you're better than this. And this time it's Booker who gets wrecked via the guardrail and the steel steps. Kanyon then places those steps on top of Booker and he smacks them with a steel chair. Don't know why he wouldn't just hit him with the chair, but who am I to argue with the innovator of offense? Yeah, that's more like it. A middle rope suplex from the outside back in from Kanyon gets a near fall before he grabs the chair again. He props it in between the top and middle rope, but Booker catches him with a power slam. Booker avoids getting thrown into the chair, but his counter gets countered with an Alabama bomb. Chris continues to work on the back with a reverse Boston Crab, but Booker fights out and, as is the way, Kanyon gets thrown into the chair that he set up before eating a spine buster for a 2. Booker takes control of the chair and he looks to whack Chris with it, but the referee puts a stop to that, and in the confusion, Kanyon bops Booker with the book. Booker has been book bopped. But alas, without the brick inside said book, Kanyon can only get a 2 count. Booker recovers to hit a Harlem sidekick, an axe kick and a book end, but he still can't put Kanyon away. He signals for his missile dropkick, but oh boy, here comes Jeff Jarrett with his guitar, and Booker gets clobbered. This allows Kanyon to hit a Kanyon cutter off the ropes for the 1, 2, 3. And if you're wondering why Jeff Jarrett appeared here, it's because he and Booker had a good main event match on Thunder this past week where Jeff almost lost the WCW Championship. The in-ring stuff was good here, but there were also many shenanigans, which is a real shame. However, I wonder will the finish play into events later on in the evening. Pamela Polchak wants to talk to Mike Awesome about his upcoming US title shot, and Mike's more interested in talking to one of Jarrett's big ladies. He accuses Pamela of being jealous, and this is the beginning of Mike's fat chick thriller gimmick, which I'll unfortunately talk about more in the coming weeks. So here we go, two big bastards are set to batter each other for the US title as Big Papa Pump defends against Mike Awesome. The champion's out first with his head hoochie Medeja, and our lover of larger ladies comes out second. We see the rare occurrence of Scott's double axe handle from the apron actually connecting as the two begin brawling on the outside. Steiner gets backdropped into the crowd and Awesome leaps over the guardrail on top of him. Still impresses me every time. They have a brief scrap through the audience and Scotty gets body slammed on the concrete floor. They fight back towards the ringside area where Awesome gets hit with a fancy folding chair before bouncing off the ring steps. In the ring, Scott stays in control with a Steiner line and his signature elbow, but a boot to the face in the corner turns the tide in Mike's favour. He gets caught out when he goes up top though, and Scott makes him pay with a middle rope belly to belly overhead suplex. Hell of a move here from the big bad booty daddy. Some mounted punches in the corner and a backbreaker keep the champ in charge, but his suplex attempt gets countered and he gets hung up on the top rope. Back we go to the outside and I'm starting to get a bit fed up with it at this stage of the evening. Awesome whacks Scotty with the ring bell before laying waste to the US champion with a steel chair. Ginger Ref lets it go though because, you know, relax rules and all that. And Dave Penzer poops his pants when Steiner gets thrown into the guardrail. Awesome scores with his top rope clothesline just as we see the cat appear on the ramp, presumably to make sure Scotty doesn't use the recliner, which was banned by the commissioner. Another big belly to belly forced the cat to get on the apron, but he's quickly dealt with by Steiner. The distraction leads to a low blow followed by an Alabama slam from Awesome for a 2 as the cat looks on. Awesome hits his big top rope splash, but he still can't put the champion away. Ginger Ref takes a tumble, so the cat gets in the ring, but heel buffoonery ensues as he kicks Awesome by mistake. Miller gets taken out with another belly-to-belly suplex, as does Awesome, and Steiner looks for his submission finisher. The cat tells him though he'll strip Scott of the title if he puts the hold on, but Scott realises just how worthless the US title is nowadays and he pops the recliner on, and so the commissioner calls for the bell. Mike Awesome is the new US champion, I think, but the cat takes the belt away up the ramp only for him to get attacked by Scotty. This means the belt might be vacated, but who knows. Again, this one was sorely let down by all the time wasting outside the ring. It just seems to be the theme of this show, unfortunately. It's also a shame to see Scott's US title run end in such a stupid way. Scott's held that belt since winning it back at the Spring Stampede tournament, making him the longest reigning champion so far since the beginning of the New Blood storyline. Vampiro takes on the Demon next in a graveyard match, and it really should have been called a little frolic in the pond match because that's the only notable thing that happened here. They splashed around in some water. For the uninitiated, Dale Torborg wanted to give the Demon character up because Vampiro was making life hell for old Dirty Dale and his fiancée Asia. Vampiro then tricked Dale into bringing the character back, and to be fair, this whole storyline is so messy because the original plan to have Christopher Daniels involved as Lampshade Man had to get scrapped. Standards and practices also stopped a bit where the Demon was supposed to spit fire in Vampiro's face, so this one was doomed before it even began. WCW's efforts to raise the Demon character up recently has been nothing but a complete flop. And really, we're just waiting for the return of Sting so he can get some revenge on Vampiro after what happened at the Great American Bash. Dale gets smacked with a big Mario block before getting put in a coffin and tipped into a shallow grave. Vampiro now has to make it back to the arena in order to officially win the match. What we got here was terrible and the poor lighting didn't help at all, but let's wait and see if Vampy Balls makes it back to the building. Traffic's terrible at this time of night. Shane Douglas must have heard those rumours about Triple H ripping off his gimmick. He says he's the franchise and he's that damn good. And I'm sorry, Triple H and Shane Douglas are not alike at all except for that one time Shane wore a biker cap. I have absolutely no idea how or why people compare Triple H to Shane Douglas, but I guess it comes from folks looking at pictures on the internet. Shane's facing Buff Daddy tonight. The franchise had to work solo while Buff was legitimately suspended, and he blames Buff for derailing his career for a couple of weeks. And it's so WCW that the guy who got suspended for beating up innocent crew workers gets to come back as a good guy. Let's spend the first half of the match fighting on the outside, eh? Haven't seen that tonight. Good shit. Shane spends a solid 30 seconds pulling up the protective mats on the outside, only for his piledriver to get reversed. Hate it when that happens. And back in the ring, Bagwell performs a swinging neckbreaker before, you guessed it, we go back to the outside. Bagwell gets his left ball smashed into the ring post, and when he takes a chair away from Shane, he gets said chair punched in his face. Shane then targets Buff's surgically repaired neck with a snapmare, followed by a Kurt Hennig rolling neck snap. And, well, look who it is. Billy Kidman's ex-bird, Tori Wilson. She gets on the apron and Shane looks for a kiss. The franchise gets smacked in the face, so she must be here to support Bagwell, right? Well, these two do have a kiss in the middle of the ring, and Buff thinks he's in luck. The moment he turns his back though, he gets kicked in his right ball. This, in turn, allows Shane to pull off the Pittsburgh plunge, but somehow Bagwell kicks out and the match continues on. Tori stops Buff from performing the blockbuster and Bagwell takes an inverted atomic drop. Shane then shows off his brand new finishing move right here and he scores a pinfall win. And this is just an opinion from a long-time fan, but if you're going to change your finishing move, make sure it looks better than the one you're leaving behind. This shoulder jawbreaker thing's nowhere near as good looking as the Pittsburgh plunge. Guess what you called this move too? Yeah, go guess. Yeah, the franchiser. Fuck's sake. Oh, here we go. It's now time for our WCW Championship match. Jeff Jarrett versus Hollywood Hogan. Hulk Hogan has arrived at the arena. Jeff Jarrett gives a cryptic message when he asks Mean Gene if he's ever seen The Usual Suspects. You know what this means, I know what this means. They've made documentaries about this nonsense, but here it is. Jeff's music plays for what feels like an eternity, and then Vince Russo shows up. We haven't seen Russo since he retired Ric Flair on Nitro, but he's back and he's walking to the ring with purpose. Double J follows, he gets in the ring for his pyro, and here comes Hollywood Hogan. As Hulk gets in the ring, Russo has a pretty worried look on his face, and Jarrett decides to head back up the ramp. Hulk says Jeff is the chosen one. He's been chosen to get powerbombed in the middle of the ring. But trust me folks, we won't be seeing the rare Hulk Hogan powerbomb tonight at this show. Jeff doesn't look too amused, but he does eventually make his way back down to the ring. Jarrett takes his time before stepping inside the ropes, and when the bell rings, Jeff lies down. This is the same thing Hogan did back at Halloween Havoc, but they're trying to make this look as real and unscripted as possible. Russo takes the belt, he throws it into the ring before heading back up the ramp, and Hogan says,
"That's why this company's in the damn shape it's in, because of bullshit like this."
Hogan puts a foot on Jarrett, he wins via pinfall, and we've got a new WCW World Heavyweight Champion. This was all a work. Hogan knew this was going to happen. Russo knew it was going to happen. The commentators, Jeff Jarrett, and no one else knew that Vince and Hulk had pre-planned all this. But because Hulk wanted to win the championship tonight, this is what was conjured up, and it's bullshit. I know it's harder for younger fans to believe, but once upon a time, people would have paid money to see Hulk Hogan perform, and the way this played out pretty much robbed those fans of seeing Hollywood work in the ring. But this isn't where the story ends. A little later on, Vince Russo comes back out and he has a lot to say for himself.
From day one that I've been in WCW, I've done nothing but deal with the bullshit of the politics behind that curtain. I've got a wife, I've got 3 kids at home, and I really don't need this shit. I came back for every one of the guys in that locker room that week in, week out, bust their ass for WCW. I came back for the Booker T's. I came back for every single guy in MIA. I came back for the Animals. I came back for Jarrett. I came back to the guys behind that curtain that give a shit about this company. And let me tell you who doesn't give a shit about this company. That goddamn politician Hulk Hogan. All day long I'm playing politics with Hulk Hogan because Hulk Hogan tonight wants to play his creative control card. That meant that tonight in the middle of this ring, when he knew it was bullshit, he beats Jeff Jarrett. Well, guess what? Hogan got his wish. Hogan got his belt and he went the hell home, and I promise everybody, or else I'll go in the goddamn grave. You will never see that piece of shit again. So Hulk Hogan now has the WCW belt. And Hulk, let's refer to that as the Hulk Hogan Memorial Belt, because from here on in, that belt don't mean shit. There will be a new WCW belt, and as far as I'm concerned, that belt still belongs to the one guy that busts his ass week in and week out in the middle of this ring. And you people can love him and hate him, but he doesn't screw anybody back there, and that's Jeff Jarrett. He will defend that title in this ring tonight. And he will defend that title against the son of a bitch back there who for 14 years has been busting his ass in WCW and can't get a goddamn break because of the Hulk Hogan. And I'm talking about Booker T. Booker T and Jeff Jarrett are the two reasons why I'm in this damn stinking business to begin with. So tonight in this ring, for the WCW title, two deserving guys, Jarrett and Booker, will compete for the WCW, and they'll tear this goddamn house down. And Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
Right, so Hulk Hogan decided he wanted to leave this pay-per-view holding the WCW Championship. He has creative control, so legally he can do this. It's a harsh reality, but it's the truth. WCW gave Hulk this creative clause, and he's free to use it anytime he pleases. Vince Russo did not want Hogan to leave Bash at the Beach as WCW champion, so they came up with this idea of Jarrett lying down and Hogan taking the belt away. Russo would then come out, he would announce that Hogan isn't the real world champion, and he'd book a match between Jeff Jarrett and Booker T for the real world title. The idea was that Hogan would hold one belt, Booker or Jeff would hold the other, and eventually Hogan could come back claiming to be the one and only WCW champion, and this would lead to an undisputed title match at a future date. It was a way to please Hulk, it pleased Russo because there's still Jarrett or Booker holding the championship, so it should have been all good. It's actually a shit idea when you think about it, and it still messed around with paying customers, but that's neither here nor there. All that mattered was that Hogan was happy and WCW still had a champion. Russo hit the ring after the Hogan and Jarrett match, and Hulk wasn't too enamored with what came out of Russo's mouth. Hogan felt that Russo went too far by calling him a piece of shit and what have you, and so Hogan decided to legitimately sue Russo and WCW for defamation, false light invasion of privacy for Russo discussing Hulk's quote creative control card on TV, and breach of contract saying as the agreed storyline had been altered when Hogan used said creative control card. WCW would end up countersuing, seeing as they tried to get Hogan to come back for future pay-per-views, but he refused to do so. Hulk was contracted to appear in 6 pay-per-views per year, by the way. And Hulk wouldn't get a single penny out of this lawsuit because the court said Russo's speech was in the context of a wrestling show. It was all in a scripted and worked environment, so the courts, nor Hulk Hogan, could establish with clear and convincing evidence that Russo's speech was made with actual malice. There's never been a better time to say it. You worked yourself into a shoot, brother. Hogan wouldn't come back to WCW. This is his exit from the company and from the Monday Night War. So bye bye Hulk, I guess, and welcome to a Hogan-free World Championship Wrestling. In regards to Russo, I honestly think this is the best promo he ever cut and probably the best thing he ever did in WCW. Not because he went so hard on Hulk, but just because he delivered the promo in such a real and convincing way. You could tell he meant some of the things he was saying, but Vince has always claimed that he was working here. He was working the boys backstage, he was working the fans at home and in the audience, and as far as Vince knew, Hogan was going to come back eventually to set up that future undisputed title match. Did Vince go too far? Obviously he did, seeing as Hogan tried to sue him, but it's remarkable how Russo can be so wrong for doing something so right. To give Hogan credit, he did have creative control, and no matter what way you spin it, it always comes back to that fact. That's a contractual obligation from the company to the employee, even if it is a clause that's bound to cause problems. WCW were stupid enough to give it to him, Hogan took advantage of it, so there is an element of Russo trying to get around that. Yeah, a gigantic mess that equates to watching a car wreck. It's terrible, but it's fucking entertaining to watch. Before moving on, I should also talk about Booker T. Creative staff at WCW felt Booker should get an opportunity because of the work he'd put in up until this point, and I fully agree. I've loved watching Booker while covering Reliving the War, and there's excitement about Booker potentially winning the WCW Championship. Many people forget about the match he had on Thunder against Jeff and how well the crowd reacted to Booker when he nearly won the championship, but there's also the lawsuit I spoke about before in a previous episode of Reliving the War, the one filed by many WCW superstars of colour who felt they weren't getting pushed in World Championship Wrestling. It was a racial discrimination lawsuit. Many believe this is why we're seeing Ernest Miller in a prominent commissioner role. It's why Ice Train was brought back. It's why Stevie Ray's set to become a full-time commentator on Thunder. And many also believe it's the reason why Booker T was put in this championship match. It could very well be. The court filings are online for everyone to see, but I see Booker as a very deserving competitor who's wrestled at a ridiculously high level right up until this point. He was given stupid gimmicks and storylines, such as the whole fighting for the letter T nonsense and the return of G.I. Bro, but Booker's an easy top 5 WCW competitor right now based on ring work alone, and forgetting about the lawsuit, he absolutely did deserve the main event of pay-per-view. It's a disservice to even mention the lawsuit when talking about Booker's work in WCW. As stated, there's been documentaries made about this mess, and as time goes on, more and more little bits of information get brought to light. You can hear Russo, Bischoff, Hogan and Jarrett talk about it, and you'll also hear the OSW boys rip it to shreds in just a moment. Finally, it's worth pointing out that the commentators had no idea how to react here. They were shocked at first, then very interested in what Russo had to say, and finally they were joking as they threw their hands up in defeat. A very, very interesting night at the office for WCW. Well, moving on. In the middle of this debacle, Vampiro returned to the arena, so Vampy Balls wins our graveyard match. He began talking about how Dale wanted to walk on the dark side and he's now buried alive, but the crowd chants "We want Sting," and yeah, I want Sting too. A bunch of randomers wearing Sting masks bring a coffin down the ramp. The commentators say this is possibly the same coffin the Demon just got put in. The crowd are still chanting "We want Sting." Vampiro says Sting's dead, and Vamp then goes out to the rampway to confront the Sting doppelgangers. The coffin opens up, the real Sting appears, I think, and Vampiro gets taken out with a few baseball shots before getting put in the coffin. The Stinger's back, again I think, and we're on our way to another Sting vs Vampiro match very soon. Backstage, Goldberg says it's taken all the professional courtesy he's got not to rip up Scott Hall's contract, but mate, I watched you eat that contract the long way on Nitro, so you're not fooling anyone. Goldberg says he's more intense and pissed off than he's ever been in his life, and he's held onto the contract so he can rip it up right in front of Kevin Nash. Goldberg says the Outsiders are no more after this match, and tonight Billy Boy's going to end Scott Hall's career. Kevin, meanwhile, wants Scott Steiner to watch his back, but Scott says he's busy. Nash reminds him that this is for Hall's contract, but Big Papa Pump's in no rush to help out his big buddy. The competitors make their entrances. Goldberg places Hall's contract on the commentary table after shoving it down his trunks. The ink's all smeared thanks to Goldberg's bald sweat, and even Kev can't believe the absolute state Goldberg's left this important paperwork in. Goldberg's first to attack and Nash gets brought to the corner. If we have learned anything about Kevin Nash over this series though, it's the fact that no one does corner offense better than Big Sexy. Kev goes on the attack, but when he tries to choke Billy Boy out, Goldberg grabs his foot. Nash gets tripped up and Goldberg follows up with his single arm underhook suplex, and there it is, the super safe sidekick. I should note that the commentators mentioned on Nitro that this is the move that put Bret Hart out of action. Had Goldberg not turned heel, I don't think this would have been talked about. Nash gets up, he delivers a chokeslam, and then Scotty Steiner walks down along with Medeja. You can smell the swerve coming a mile off. Scott tries to motivate Nash by showing him the bad guy's contract. The two get up and Nash gets his ass kicked in the corner. In the opposite corner, Big Kev gets a boot up and we see a dodgy sidewalk slam. And when Goldberg kicks out, Kevin dodges a spear. When the two eventually get back to their feet, Nash pulls his singlet down. He sets Goldberg up for the jackknife. And swerve, bro. It's a swerve, bro. I would complain about Scott Steiner running back to the New Blood multiple times like the faction's some sort of lady of the night, but after what happened with Hogan earlier on, the New Blood storyline is more or less finished. Spear, jackhammer, Kev gets pinned, and that means the outsiders are no more. Goldberg rips the contract up while Nash gets put in the Steiner recliner, and yeah, I think it's a mistake turning Steiner heel again. He was doing so well as a babyface, but we could potentially see a two-man power trip with Goldberg and Big Papa Pump. No doubt WCW's gonna mess it up. Booker T says he's surprised by tonight's events, but opportunity has knocked and Booker's going to answer the door. He's going to do what he's got to do, so here we go, Booker T versus Jeff Jarrett for the World Heavyweight Championship. The commentators are still in a state of shock. They say Nash vs Goldberg was supposed to be our final match, and you can sense Giovanni's frustrated as he sends it over to Michael Buffer. Buffer says this is one of the most amazing nights in the history of professional wrestling, and the crowd boos, but they definitely perk up for Booker T's entrance. Out comes Double J, the bell rings, and we have a slow starter here after a few stalemates. Neither man can overcome the other. The first big move's a dropkick from Booker T. This leads to Jarrett taking a timeout, and when the match resumes, Booker stays on his opponent with a Harlem sidekick. Booker's looking good here. We go to the outside and into the audience. The most controversial thing about this show should be how no one fights inside the ring. It's a mob scene as Booker and Jarrett fight through the crowd, and that's because Doug Dillinger's Merry Men are the worst security guards in the history of security guards. The two make it back to the ringside area where Booker gets thrown on the announce table. Jarrett follows this up with a piledriver, which doesn't get the reaction you'd expect it to. But we continue on in the ring with Booker shaking it off, so Jarrett applies a sleeper. A long sleeper that gets followed up with another one. And another one from Booker T. I was hoping for Booker to pull out all the stops here, but we have seen way better in the past. Keep in mind though, he did wrestle earlier on. Jarrett manages to put Booker in the figure four, but Booker reverses the pressure. The move gets broken up and Jarrett continues targeting the leg and knee. Double J misses a teabag and Booker starts fighting back, and we see the axe kick and spinebuster from Book. The fans think it's all over, Jarrett kicks out, so Booker goes for another Harlem sidekick, but he crotches himself on the top rope. The match is definitely picking up a bit now, but we're already approaching the end. Billy Silverman gets wiped out, and this allows Jeff to grab his world championship. Jeff tries to use it, Booker dodges the attack. Double J gets smacked with the belt, but he still kicks out of Booker's cover. After a low blow, Jarrett grabs a steel chair. The chair gets wedged in the corner. And just like Kanyon earlier on, the guy who sets up the spot takes the bump. Eventually, Jeff gets frustrated, so he attacks the referee and he hits Booker with a low blow. He then grabs the acoustic equalizer, but his attack fails. Double J jumps straight into a book end, and Slick Johnson runs down to count the 1, 2, 3. Booker T is the new WCW World Heavyweight Champion, and yeah, this moment right here is pretty fucking awesome. The fans get on their feet as they celebrate Booker's monumental win, a win that came around due to some very controversial circumstances. But as mentioned before, Booker T absolutely deserved this win, and for me, it helps negate the nonsense just a little bit from earlier on. Booker T's the man. Bash at the Beach 2000 was always one of those shows I had lurking in the back of my mind when covering the entire Monday Night War. One of those shows I knew I had to cover eventually, whether I liked it or not, so it's a relief to get this one in the books. It's actually not a terrible show, just for the sheer entertainment value it provides. I know it's a bit of a joke to look back on, and the controversy surrounding Russo and Hogan's what always gets brought to the forefront, but there are a couple of decent matches here along with Booker T's title win. I wouldn't really call the main event all that good. It's actually a bit annoying that this is probably the WCW match Booker T's most known for, because he's way better than this. But all in all, I've sat through worse WCW pay-per-views in 2000 and 1999. Now you're going to hear what JV1 and OOC think of Bash at the Beach. Their viewers' choice videos going live on YouTube in just a moment. So thank you for watching this Reliving the War video, and I'll see you over on OSW Reviews channel. Please take care.